Going on for about 20 minutes since the police started the chase, and we're now 30 minutes at least into this. You can still see pieces
I was about to say,
of the
you can see
car
that
coming
debris.
off.
Yeah.
Looked like actually, yeah, it looked like the spring has come out of the left front suspension, which is not surprising.
And it seems like we're starting to slow down at this point. This has gotten much slower in the past 30 seconds or so, because that vehicle's literally coming apart on the freeway.
Yeah, and you can see it just leaning there a little more as we follow this chase here up Gulf Freeway on the southbound lanes. Yeah, you see the police there behind it and some in front. They also have a perimeter there. I see there on the feeder road, some officers there also following that. But Dawn, just so surprising that we started this chase following this about 6 to 7 minutes ago, and somehow this driver is still able to keep going at a decent speed.
It is truly amazing, and you know, you would think that if he can drive this well on three wheels that he would go faster. I don't know, but don't know what the thought process is here to begin with. So you just never know with these chase vehicles. I don't understand the purpose of all of this, especially with all of the police in pursuit and at a decent pace, 60 miles an hour or so.
Yeah, so, well, I guess we never really understand the chases, and I'm also wondering, there's probably helicopters up there with you as well. Have you seen any police or county helicopters up there keeping up as well?
I have not. The county helicopters are kept in a different part of town. I just want to look here real quick and see. This is Galveston police that are chasing him, and I mentioned to you earlier that it was coming out of Galveston County, so not exactly sure if this was Galveston City proper, but Galveston police is taking the lead on this. Okay,
Don, we're going to interrupt for just a moment to let everybody know that as we wind up Eyewitness News at 6:30, we continue the chase right now on abc13.com. So you can switch over to follow us on digital as we return you to the programming. We're going to meet you there right now. And we continue on digital here on abc13.com. This police chase as they follow this truck. This is now down near Clear Lake, I-45 South. This is the Gulf Freeway. It started on the Gulf Freeway down near El Dorado, went all the way up into the city of Houston, turned around pretty close to Hobby Airport. The person exited the freeway, basically made a U-turn under it, and got right back on. This vehicle has not had a left front tire since we have been following the chase, and now also has no left front wheel either. Headed back down south toward Galveston on I-45, now down near Clear Lake, and amazingly picking up speed at this point, Dawn. I thought that we were basically wrapping things up about 2 minutes ago, and it looks like they've managed to pick speed right back up again, and the sparks are still flying.
And there's no fire, at least the one that's visible right now, but sooner or later it will. You can see the smoke coming out from the back of the car, so something in there is burning besides scraping on the ground. So it's just a matter of time. And to be quite frank with you, I'm surprised that we don't have spike strips put out ahead of this. I understand that the freeway still has regular traffic on it, but at some point, I would imagine that the driver of this vehicle is going to pull off of the freeway, or at least off to the side once it's incapable of moving.
Yeah, we don't know who is driving this vehicle. Again, we're not really sure what started all of this, and we don't know if this driver could potentially be armed. But you can see authorities, the Galveston County, as Don mentioned, really making that decision to stay far behind this. We are now officially in traffic here, Don. We are coming up on vehicles that are stopped on the freeway. It looks like the truck has decided to exit at this point, and yep, we have exited off of the freeway once again. We'll be on the feeder road in just a moment. Or is this NASA Road 1? I'm trying to figure out.
That looks like NASA Road 1. I think he got off on. Is it Don? And as he's driving, you can just see pieces of the car, of that truck still.
What they call the NASA bypass.
Got you. And like I was saying, you can just see pieces of the truck still coming off as this driver is making his way up the road. And Don, it seems like we can't get a clear picture inside this truck. It looked like the windows may be tinted.
Yeah, I was trying to look in there to see myself. The windows are rolled up, the windows are tinted. Obviously the engine's running and the air conditioning is on, so I hope that they're comfortable.
No, you're right.
It appears that way. Don't see any more sparks, so I'm not exactly sure what the truck is riding on in that left front, but it certainly is on the undercarriage of the truck. The Nissan Frontier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Surprised that he's even able to maneuver like he's
it's
been able to.
amazing. Right. I mean, I'm just shocked that a vehicle can continue driving for this long. And we are seeing some flames coming from under that hood. So that's what Don was talking about. Some of those were sparks that we were seeing down on the ground. But when the lighting is right, it looks like there are actually some flames coming from underneath the vehicle as well. And if we got that shadow back on it, we would see it. You can see how squirrely the vehicle is.
Now
we've got a window down.
Down, and you see someone waving there out of the truck, like he's saying go back, or the person is saying stay back, stay back. But you see that truck coming to a stop there. Once again, this is on the NASA bypass. You see officers there surrounding this pickup truck, even though he is waving out of the window saying stay back. Stay back. Yeah,
and you know, obviously those deputies are not going to follow the orders of this vehicle driver who has been running from them all this time and endangering people's lives on the freeway. They are now in this defensive position. We don't know if this person might be armed, and so they are certainly going to be very careful in taking these chances. We do have deputies that have gotten out of their vehicle, but they are staying behind them at this point, waiting hopefully for this person to give themselves up. In the meantime, they're going to have to be very cautious and not knowing exactly what they're dealing with here.
Right. Yeah, and you see his arm.
Chauncey, it is Galveston Police and Galveston County Sheriff's offices. So, and it looks like there may be some constables as well from Harris County. So a lot of different agencies involved in this pursuit. And I just have to throw out there that this may be, not sure, this may be a female driver. I'm not quite sure. So we're going to have to wait and see, but we're going to find out here very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, Don, I noticed some kind of bracelets during the, right there, the last few seconds, the arm wave when we got as close as you could. Don't know if this is a man or a woman, but you did continue to see that the arm is coming out and gesturing to police there on scene. As you see, they are standing by, trying to take control of this situation happening there off the NASA bypass. And you see the driver there still trying to get something across to the officers there on scene by waving the hand out of the car, out of that truck. Alona maybe saying, it looks like trying to gesture, stay back, stay back, stay back. But you see there, they are moving in here a little bit, and we're just watching this scene as this all plays out here on the NASA bypass. That car, the truck coming to a stop here just a few minutes ago. You see officers there even coming inside the ditch. I
mention the fact that I know that people are thinking, well, why can't we look real closely at the driver? Because we don't know what's going to happen here, and we don't want to show something on television that we really don't want to show. So I'm keeping kind of a wide shot here so you can see what's going on without getting too graphic about it.
Absolutely. We always try to be really careful about a situation like this, just like those deputies and officers are being so careful. They are keeping their distance right now. They are all staying in safe places as they really are trying to bring this to a peaceful end and not escalate the situation. So, you know, they are out of their vehicles and they're just taking their time as they wait for this to play out and giving this person some time and space here as they negotiate exactly how they are going to handle this situation. But you can see quite a bit of distance. They did not rush in. They didn't get those vehicles right up. It looks like the person is hanging out the window and perhaps communicating with them. As Don said, we don't want to get too close because we want to keep our distance on this shot. We don't know what's going to happen next. But certainly just a moment ago, I could see that that window was still down, and I could see that that person looked to be yelling or talking out the window to officers. So this is one of those situations where they're trying to use the utmost of caution, but also control to calmly bring this down. We're seeing that SUV, the deputy's vehicle, backing up a ways in the other direction, perhaps to
Maybe to
either
stop that traffic, right?
Yeah, and make sure that nobody else is getting too close to this situation.
Yeah, I was surprised that they had not stopped the traffic on that side of the road, especially dealing with how close it is in proximity with where this truck has come to a stop here. You see the officers there on scene, just telling people to keep going and get on across to pass this scene, because at this point, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to play out here in the coming seconds or minutes. They don't know what is going to go down here. They don't know much about this this driver and what's the driver's next move. Right now, we don't even know if this is a man or a woman inside, Don.
That's right, Chauncey. I've been on too many of these, and we've always just assumed that it is a male, and I have been on some that turn out to be female. And the way that the chase proceeded, going about 60 miles an hour, tells me that this may be a female. Just a gut feeling.
Well, look at this police response as we take a look at this wider shot here. This gives you an idea of just how many officers and deputies were chasing after this vehicle. It looks like about a dozen of them right here in this spot. And Don, did they manage to get all traffic stopped on the other side? It does look like it. I'm not seeing vehicles going by at this point. Yeah, so they stopped all traffic, and they're making sure that nobody gets caught in the middle of this, what could be a bad situation. So definitely making a good call there to just keep the public away, keep everybody safe while they wait for this to come to an end, and obviously giving themselves the time they need to make sure that this is not a rushed situation here.
You know, I just want to throw in there that this may be some sort of a domestic dispute that this person has had with their mate. You just never know. They might not be armed. Of course, the police don't necessarily know that, and they have to treat it like the person is armed. There is something going on here. I do notice that the police do not seem to have their guns drawn on that car, so they are standing obviously behind their cars, so they are protected in case someone does pull a weapon, but they are not at this point in that kind of a defensive mode like they have been shot at or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of officers or deputies outside of their vehicle. They are staying in relatively safe places, but I do see them moving around. I do see them in front of those vehicles from time to time, and perhaps they're trying to communicate with the person in this truck. You know, just really it's difficult to tell exactly what's happening there on the ground. And as we continue to remind our viewers, we don't want to get too close into this shot. We're trying to give you the idea of what's going on as we watch this all play out live. We never know how these are going to end. Again, this is a chase that started on the Gulf Freeway way down south around El Dorado on I-45, went up toward the city, and then this person exited near Hobby Airport, a little bit further north of Hobby Airport, and then basically just made a U-turn and came straight back down the Gulf Freeway, exited off of the NASA bypass, ended up on the NASA bypass road here. And so this is a vehicle that did not have a front left tire from the moment we picked it up. This was a 30-plus minute chase. Not particularly high speeds, but also certainly not slow speeds. And this driver managed to keep it going without a left front tire and then really without a left front wheel for quite some time. It actually ended, you know, it was going to end no matter what with that vehicle disintegrating before our very eyes. But it didn't necessarily look like this driver made the decision to stop because they had to. The vehicle was still moving when the window was put down and an arm hung out, and it looked like they were giving a motion to stay back, pulled the vehicle over. Thankfully, there hasn't been a vehicle fire, guys, because it certainly looked like it was likely with all of the smoke and flames that we saw coming out of that car, right?
Right, yeah, it was. And you know, Don, I'm looking at the scene and the big police response here. Of course, they are in an on-guard stance, just preparing for what is to come here as the uncertainty builds. But also, I see some officers in the back who are in a more relaxed standpoint. You've covered, like you said, a ton of these. Does it look like they may have some intel that maybe this person may not be as dangerous as we might think?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, Chauncey, that there's some sort of, you know, hostage-type negotiation style going on here. That they're trying to talk to the driver, calm them down, get them to come out of the car. The driver has not obviously done that yet, and we're just going to sit here and wait till that happens. But it appears as though I don't see any guns drawn. Everybody's kind of standing around waiting for the lead sheriff's deputy, or I guess it's Galveston County that we picked up, or a Galveston City police officer that was leading the chase, and he would be having that conversation with the driver, trying to get them to negotiate them out of their car.
Right. And we saw just a few minutes ago, the driver in this truck did have his or her hand out of the window, gesturing to police, sort of waving the hand like almost like a stay back. Then the window went up, then the window came back down. The driver did the same thing, giving police that wave as to say, hey, stand back, and then the window went back up. And it's hard to see inside because the windows of this truck are tinted, but you see the big police response there as they are trying to get this situation under control. I see the window going back down, and it seems like the driver may be trying to communicate something to these officers on scene, Don.
It appears that way, Chauncey. Like I said, the police are in such a position here that they don't seem to be threatened at all. And as you mentioned, the driver does seem to bring the window down and then talk with them and then put the window back up.
Yeah, it does look like there's some officers or deputies that are pretty close to the sides of their vehicle, and even up near the front of one of them that's kind of parked in that middle lane, not necessarily standing behind cover. And so, we certainly have seen them in more defensive modes in other situations, and it does seem to be that, obviously they're all taking a lot of care, but that perhaps they have gotten closer to communicate. And I do think that I'm seeing that person also kind of hanging out of the truck from time to time.
The window goes back up.
Yeah, it does seem like that window was down and there was some communication happening there. So they're again taking their time with this. All traffic, of course, stopped, not just in this direction, but the other. We saw a deputy head to the other side there and get traffic totally stopped in the other direction. This is on the NASA bypass road. Just as we widen up, you can see this is where everybody's been forced to stop here, just keeping everybody at a safe distance. Unfortunately for those drivers, they're stuck. There's no way for them to turn around and go in a different direction because there's a divider in the roadway. We can see some of the deputies on the other side using that divider as a barrier and as sort of a safe wall there, but that means that traffic is stuck. So if you're in the area, this is going to give you some idea of what's going on. They've just been stopped for about 10 minutes there now, and hopefully they are able to get this to a peaceful resolution very quickly. But they certainly have the manpower on the scene to handle this, and it's amazing to see all those SUVs. Usually we see police cruisers, we think of those cars that would follow along in a chase like this, but Galveston County seems to have a whole lot of SUVs down there to follow along, because that is most of what we are seeing involved in this particular chase, with a couple of the more traditional cruisers thrown in there, but at least a dozen different vehicles. And they stayed very calm the whole time and stayed behind the vehicle and just basically waited for it to play out, and that's exactly what happened. We don't ever know how things are going to play out if they decide to take more aggressive measures to stop a chase, and it's probably a very difficult decision to make when it's all playing out live on freeways, because you worry about the safety of every other driver that's out there, especially when you've got somebody driving on a rim or even on the frame of a vehicle, which means it's not going to handle well, it's not going to steer very well, and you just, you worry about the safety of other people. But in this case, using that patience was definitely the best thing to do, and we've come to a quiet end here as long as they can get this driver out of the vehicle.
And we watched this truck just...
To be honest with you guys, I have to tell you that they couldn't have played out at a better location. on a part of the freeway, this NASA bypass. There are no feeder roads leading up to this portion of the bypass, and there's no way to get off. It's fenced in, as you can see. So really, as far as public safety is concerned, this is a good place for this to come to an end.
Yeah, it is. And we watched this car, this truck drive, and literally pieces of it just falling apart. Of course, that wheel down to the axle, and the fire coming from under it, and after the driver even lost the tire, still going at a good rate of speed there. And we've talked to police before and how they handle situations like this, and we know it's very strategic, and they really want to try to get as much intel and information about who may be behind the wheel of the truck before they decide to make any major decisions, or before they decide to go aggressive as they can, or even how they approach the driver, how they approach the truck here. But you see, Don, we've been talking about here the sort of the posture that it seems relaxed, and most of the deputies, most of these officers there on scene as they try to communicate with whoever is inside of this truck. We know for the past few minutes, since the car took a rolling stop there, that driver has been rolling down the window, gesturing back to those officers. You see that officer now running back there to the truck there. So it seems like that they do have had some kind of communication with that driver. And once again, we are staying a good distance away and not zooming in to show, because right now it's so much uncertainty. We don't know how this will play out. Of course, we're all hoping that everything plays out and turns out safely here. But Don Armstrong, in the past, we know officers try to be very strategic in the way that they approach this car, and sometimes it could take a while before things play out.
It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, it could be 10 minutes. We just don't know at this point. Clearly, they are having negotiations with that person that's driving the car, that's behind the wheel, that won't come out. Why the person won't come out, not sure. We hope that they don't have any weapons on them, as well as the police as well. I mean, they don't know if the person has a weapon in there or not. And so everybody's got to play this extra safe. There's no rush on anybody's part here to get this over with, and clearly the police don't want to rush up to the door should the person have a gun not pointed at the police but at themselves. You just don't know what goes on in negotiations like this.
Yeah, we did see some activity, as you guys mentioned just a minute ago. It looked like, there's sort of a change of stance. There were some officers or deputies running back toward their vehicles. We do have, looks like at least one cruiser that might be turning around and trying to leave. But boy, trying to get through this mess is going to take some time. This is what happens when you close off a road like this at 7 p.m. This is a roadway with those barriers, so you can't get out of it once you get in it. And Dawn, this is some traffic here. Yeah, Dawn is widening up, showing us the traffic on I-45. Again, those are the southbound lanes that we just saw, and then this is the exit to NASA Road, or the NASA bypass, rather, all the way up to where the chase is here. This is the traffic in the other direction, so this is headed toward the freeway, basically westbound on the NASA bypass as people try to get onto the freeway, and you can see a major backup there as well. It's probably pretty difficult to get the word all the way back there that this is not a good spot to get into. These people could be stuck for quite some time. There's not really an effective way to get them out of the way once they're stuck in this position. Dawn mentioned there's a fence on one side and there's a barrier, so there's no way for these people to pull a U-turn and get out of all of this traffic. So we've got plenty of folks stuck for a while, but that's not going to impact the negotiations that are taking place right here. They're going to take the time that they need to take right now. And so unfortunately for all of the drivers stuck in traffic, there's just not a lot they can do but be patient right now on a Friday evening. Not what they were expecting to run into, Chauncey.
Right. And Dawn, I don't know if you can show us different perspective, backing up a little bit. But I know we have two different sort of blockades, if you will, and I don't know if some cars ended up getting stuck closer here to the scene where police are, or if they pushed those cars back a little bit. I see that record driver right there trying to turn around. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. You have some, those are, I guess, I'm guessing, Don, there were regular drivers who ended up being right behind this chase whenever that truck decided to come to the rolling stop here. Is that what it seemed like to you?
That's right. Yes, Chauncey. As a matter of fact, I believe that this is the lead civilian car there. It's right next to the sheriff's deputy. They're going to try to get that car out of there,
right?
My guess, yeah, because it's not really a safe place because they don't know how this is going to turn out. None of us do, and we're going to continue to monitor this. As you mentioned, traffic is now backed up coming out of the Clear Lake NASA area on the NASA bypass. So obviously the alternate version would be stay on NASA Road 1 and avoid all of this. But as you can see, quite the backup. People are going to be stuck here for as long as this continues.
All right. Are there any other authorities, helicopters up there still, or do they basically peel off as soon as the chase comes to an end? Have they headed back to the airport, or are they still flying like you are?
Yes. My pilot, Kevin Yip, is nodding yes, that there are police helicopters up here as well.
Okay, we've got some video to show everybody. This is what we were talking about just a little while ago. We want to take you back to when we were following this as an active chase on I-45, headed northbound and then exiting the freeway and heading southbound once again, just to give you an idea. Hang on, I think that the driver has come out.
Yes, the driver is out. You see there, the driver is out. And it looks like something is in the driver's hand. Then the driver gets back. I know the driver has long hair, but is it a woman, Don?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's a female, and she jumped back into the car.
And it seemed like she was holding something up in her hand. We don't know what she held there to officers, but she did get out a few steps away from this truck, holding something in her hand up to officers. And now you see the officers do intentionally have their guns drawn towards this truck and towards this woman, Alona.
Yeah, we can see that they are all, especially those officers behind the barricade there, have their guns drawn and are definitely ready for whatever is to play out in front of them. We're going to show you a little bit of video on the right-hand side of your screen. This was the chase that we were talking about, going north on I-45 with all of those cruisers right behind them. And this was the vehicle. This is what it looked like. It was over kind of on its side as debris came flying off of it because it went down from a wheel to a rim to the frame of the vehicle. I think it was, we really thought this was pretty much on its axle for most of the time that we were following it. There were sparks flying for much of this chase, not extremely high speeds, but certainly not slow speeds considering the fact that there was no front wheel on the vehicle. This is the exit off of the NASA bypass road. And then very shortly after the exit here, you will see that driver pull over, make the decision to pull over, we believe. It seems like the vehicle was still running to some extent on its own, and that driver pulls over to the side, puts the window down, and is waving her arm. We now believe that this is a woman waving her arm, seeming to tell officers to stay back. That's what the movement looked like to me anyway.
And Don, I want to go back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago about the position that these officers were in and maybe having some intel that this driver is not as dangerous as we think. But you see there in the video to the right, the driver there motioning out of the car as telling officers to get back. But then that driver getting out of the car with the hands up holding something, and the officer still taking the approach to remain cautious.
Well, you just don't know. I mean, she could have, if it's a female and she got out of the car, she could have said, I have a gun on the seat. There she is out again. She's out there waving her hand again. And you just don't know what she is saying to the officers that are here.
This time it looks like her hands are up.
She may have a gun on the seat.
Right.
Typically, what will happen here is that she will be asked to turn around the other way and walk backwards to them. It does. I don't. Is that a cell phone that she has in her hand? I just don't know.
Yeah, and
I do not want to push in there.
Yeah.
So she's turned around.
Yep.
So she's obviously obeying what they've asked.
Okay.
This is finally coming to an end.
All right, that person down on the ground. We can see the hands now down back behind her. Seems to be following police orders at this point. We're going to see officers go up to her in full defensive mode, get a hold of those hands and arrest this driver. And it looks like it just came to an end. They're now searching the vehicle, making sure there's not another person. And they've gotten the person up off the ground and led her over to one of their vehicles. This person is now handcuffed. And we believe that this has just come to a peaceful end.
Yeah. Once again, this started there out of Clear Lake. This driver leading police on a chase there, coming to a rolling stop at the NASA bypass, getting out of the car twice before finally surrendering to police. You just watched moments ago here live on ABC13.com. The officers moving in as the driver of the car, which we think is a woman, looked like a skirt that this person was wearing, getting on the ground and obeying police demands. And finally this is coming to a safe ending as this person is being taken into police custody.
Yep. And it looks like we aren't able to see what it is that driver set down on the ground, but perhaps that's what they were holding the whole time. They're going to make sure that they search this driver and make sure that there's no other weapons that they may be holding. But good to see this peaceful end. You know, it's really it's good to see that the officers are able to take their time and use patience and convince this person that the best idea is to follow their orders and not seeing any sort of disaster sort of here play out live, because this is exactly what they want to happen. They want to be able to control the situation and calmly bring it to an end after, you know, really anytime we see a police chase, this is somebody who's put lives in danger in the public, and so they need to handle it very carefully after they get that person pulled over. And Don, are we seeing?
We're very thankful that it ended this way.
Yep.
You know, it could have ended in many different ways, and this is the best way.
Yep.
And they are bringing a stretcher out now, as you can see, and they may be putting that prisoner onto a gurney and transporting that person to a hospital, which was kind of my gut feeling as this progressed once the thing came to a stop.
Right. And like we've been talking about, just so much uncertainty. We don't know if this person was having a mental breakdown or a medical emergency. We don't know, but we do know just the posture police they were taking in dealing with this before the driver surrendered led us to believe that they had some kind of information that the driver may not be as dangerous as they are trying to get this person over here to this gurney right here to be taken to a hospital or loaded up there on the ambulance. But as they are searching, they've searched this truck also to the right here for the past few minutes while they tended to this suspect here, the driver. And we don't know still, Alona, what that was in that driver's hand, but we know it was taken away by police immediately as they took this driver into custody.
So as we watch this, Don, this is also a traffic issue playing out. Thankfully, we're not on the freeway doing this, but this is the bypass road. They are going to start letting one lane of traffic get by. So this backup should be moving pretty quickly. These are the folks who are heading toward I-45, driving west and trying to make their way over toward I-45. It looks like they are now clear to go. There will still be one lane blocked on that side, but hopefully that traffic clears quickly. They've managed to U-turn everybody that was stuck in that other direction, which is a little bit of good news. It's going to take them a while to make their way through all of this traffic. These are the folks that just exited off of I-45 headed south. And so this is where we are seeing the biggest backup right now. Right, Don?
That's right. And it looks as though that traffic that's coming up from the NASA Clear Lake area is free to go. A couple lanes blocked over here. Not a big deal, but heading off of 45, the Gulf Freeway, the NASA bypass exit is blocked, and you'll have to use another exit, maybe perhaps El Dorado or Clear Lake Boulevard.
All right. Well, you know we're going to be working on this, trying to figure out what led up to all of this and sort of give you some resolutions. So stay with abc13.com and join us on Eyewitness News tonight at 10. We will be able to have a full breakdown of this. Our team will be working very hard between now and then to try to get the backstory and get a little bit more information about what is going on here. But in the meantime, Don, we certainly appreciate the live coverage from up above in SkyEye 13. Excellent job. Just how we want something like this to end, Don. We certainly appreciate it. And Chauncey, we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks for being here at abc13.com as we brought this chase here to you live. And like you said, best case scenario, and glad things ended safely. We'll have the very latest on what happened here and the backstory and how this all came to an end coming up tonight on Eyewitness News at 10 o'clock. Have a great night, friends.
This has been breaking news from ABC 13. For more information, head to abc13.com